Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depends on when you decide to watch me and Omen Owl here talk about, well, dinosaurs and whatever else we decide to talk about tonight. Maybe talking about lamb stew. I don't know where we're going, but we'll get there.
Hey, if we start talking about food, man, I just saw something where they're talking about pasties. So
Oh, man. I've always wanted to try to make those. They
I
can't,
just
they don't look hard.
did
It's
you
the
well
pastry. It's the pastry that throws me off.
well they were talking about what is it, Tasting History with Max Miller, that YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
I like it, but he was talking about, since we're going to talk about this weekend, is Robin Hood and what he would have eaten, and one of them was a pasty.
Those things, where was I? I was up in Minnesota. I always want to go miss Minnesota. No, it's not Canada, but they sure as hell sound like they could be part of Canada. And there was this diner I went to, and they served those, and oh my god! And they weren't small things. They're like pretty good size, and all the basic stuff. I think this one had lamb, potatoes, onions, peas. I mean, it was a shepherd's pie and a pastry, more or less.
Yep. Well, that's what they used to do, is they used to cook it, and then a lot of the coal miners would take them down, underground with them, and I think sometimes when people talk about how big they are, and of course, never get an argument with the internet. It's all you're doing is wasting your time. But but part of it was, talking about people gaining weight, and he's like, well, this is gonna. So look, a lot of it is just because we get desk jobs, we sit behind and do nothing, and then we said come home and watch TV a lot instead of going out and working out, um, like our ancestors used to. Hell, I dug a 3 foot hole, 3 by 3 by 3 hole. I'm still suffering, and that was a couple days ago. So
I mean, that's even, and this is a recent thing, society wise. This is not a new thing. I mean, I could think of my grandparents who grandpa worked, both sides of my family. My grandpa Marshall was a field worked on the family farm, then he went to work in factory work. Well, factory work, real factory work. I'm
yeah,
not talking about, I don't know. I mean, I work in the I've done my share of factory work, and it's a job. It is a job, but it hasn't seemed like as until recently where we become more of a subdued sub
sedentary is probably what you're trying to say.
yeah culture.
Yeah.
Well, everything we could do is by the power of the internet. Why do I need to cart 15 things up when I could just da 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 da?
Well, I'm a little bit different because I when I was in my mid 20s, I worked at FedEx, and I was working probably 4 to 6 hours a day. Some days I actually worked 18 because they give me some extra stuff, and I was loading boxes, and I was having 4,500 calories and losing weight. People forget about that, and now I look at myself, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll go. Should I go out for a walk? Nah. Like, okay, whatever happened to the person that was, and in college, I used to walk 8 to 12 miles a day. And that was in Germany, not so much, but I remember walking 4 miles one way to go to college. And
I brought this up. I think I brought it up. I was definitely thinking about it when we were doing timeline. It wasn't uncommon for workers, serfs, or merchants, or whatever to walk anywhere from 10 to 15 miles just one direction, and at the end of the day, towards the end of the day, walk it back.
I mean, I don't think they walk that. I think a lot of them would walk 10 miles a day. But man, people forget, what is an acre? An acre was what a man could plow in one day.
Right. Oh
And
yeah.
and it doesn't sound that big until you have to keep walking it carrying something. I can say that. That's
I just
because I've got about 36 acres, and I have to walk about 1,000 feet to get to where I'm starting to plant these trees.
I
And
was
and I'm going, and then I have to carry like a 40-pound bag on my back. Like, well, and we're just talking, I'm talking like It was a
Oh yeah.
big thing of mulch. So it didn't have like, didn't have the straps and everything else. I'm
Yeah,
like,
throw over your shoulder. You got to throw it either over your shoulder like this, or you got to bunch up like a baby and hold it in your arm as you know. No,
or you
I
throw
get
it
it.
on your back and you're leaning forward.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, and historically, everybody before cars, people had horses. Well, not everybody had horses. Some people just had to quite literally walk from point A to point Z to make it back home. Where it's just I don't know. I'm not saying the modern civilization is lazy by any stretch of the imagination. I think we've put ourselves as a race where we rely on too many things.
I
Cars
think, well, I'm going to
being
say, I think we have become a bit lazy, but some of it is, I look at my son, he'll run around and do everything. But as you get older, you become more efficient. You don't do things that you don't have to do as much. You can, well, I mean, like you'll see someone run and they'll go like this, zigzagging back and forth. In the meantime, you look at the old guy, and every step is well planned, and there's no inefficient movement. And you go, okay,
I
but
went to the grocery store again today,
yeah,
and I was there just thinking about what you just said. Back when I was younger, I would have been every aisle, checking out every little thing I wanted and possibly wanted to get. Now it's like, all right, I need salad, I need this, I need this, I need this out. Look, 15 minutes out, and I just bam, bam, boom. Or an hour later, I'd be still at the mic. Ooh, they have the dark chocolate covered raisins. Whatever.
we can't be friends. You just said you like raisins. No, I'm just kidding.
You're from a culture that abused the hell out of grapes and made some interesting tasting vinegar out of it.
I know. I'm just, but no, I just have to laugh at the whole thing. Well, when I was in Afghanistan and Iraq, uh, they don't use the little black raisins or whatever you want to call them. They always use the golden raisins
Ooh,
or the white raisins.
really?
Yeah.
Wait. They don't drink alcohol. I'm sorry. I was thinking alcohol based. I was, yeah. Sorry.
Well, it depends. If you're Christian, they do.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was watching 13th Warrior. And have you seen that movie?
I have. It's been a long time, but I have.
And then there's a whole scene where Anthony, the main character, is like he was a Muslim, says I cannot drink anything that's made from wine or grain, and the Vikings like you fool! It's made of honey. Guzzle, 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 guzzle. And then he starts drinking because it's not not made out of grape or grain. I talked to a few Muslim friends I have up here. I'm like, yeah, no, it's still a hard no.
It's vodka. Vodka would because it's made of potatoes. I know. I mean,
Yeah.
now what I've heard. Now I like listening to one guy, but he says that he got one of those um, fitness monitors,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he loved to drink, but the fitness monitor always showed that his physical performance went way down, and his heartbeats went up and everything else. He's just like, he says it was healthier for him to smoke cigars than it is for him to drink. I said, well, yeah, I understand. I just don't like the effects it has on me, but
Well, not everybody. I mean, it's poison. Not everybody meant to be a drinker. It's not like I'm asking you, how to tie your shoes. Not everybody should drink. I have rampant alcoholism all over my family. Somehow it either skipped me or it hasn't fully kicked in as of yet, which I hope it skipped me.
well, the other part is, and people forget this, is we look at it, we take clean water for granted.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you look back in the era, is like I was in Germany and I have a German hunting license somewhere. Anyway, one of the things they said is don't use the water because they viewed water as contaminated, so that's why they did beer. Now the beer didn't have a lot of alcohol; it may be like 2% alcohol or something, but they drank it like water because you couldn't.
I don't know how 100% true it is. I've heard this from a couple different sources. But when the programs landed at Plymouth, it wasn't because this X marks the spot. Is because they ran out of ale and they had to stop somewhere to make more drinkable water because Well, can't drink salt water, and the water they had on board it was either out or no longer safe. So that leaves, as you said, ale. There's a story about some where do monks live? Friary
Abby's.
abbeys. Yeah, in France, where no one, if you drink the water, you get sick because of the pollution from the animals. But they turn it into alcohol, and it was safe to drink. Then, I mean,
Well, I mean, you have to generally heat it or you ferment it, you're pasteurizing it. There's a lot of things in there. Um, and that's part of the reason they would do it. It's, whereas sometimes if you got springs, that was really clean, but most water went down the rivers and people bathed and defecated in it. And, you know,
unless it's leaking out of limestone. I'm going even if it's leaking out of limestone, I'm still going to boil the hell out of it.
it never hurts you to protect it. The other thing is, you get little pathogens and things. That's part of it. But yeah. So I was going to ask you, since what are your favorite monsters? Not the ones you use against characters, but just visually and mentally. What are the favorite monsters that you have?
It just got me in trouble with Shadow. I like humans.
No. I mean, well, no. As adversaries, I like humans as well.
Monsters. What monsters do I like? As in general, like if I'm gonna go read a book about a particular monster or
Stories or the look of them or just the cool abilities or anything else. Not necessarily to throw in your games, but just sometimes just the idea of things that you love about them.
I like werewolves. I find vampires interesting. Almost all cultures in this world has a version of a vampire of some sort. Werewolves are fairly close. I think everybody has ghost stories.
Sure,
but I like werewolves. To be, I don't know. I just have always had a thing for werewolves. I thought they were fun. No, I do not want to bounce into one, in game or in real life. But also, Roy, depends on what culture the werewolf comes from. It being a Native American skinwalker, it being the French Lebet or the Irish Loup-garou, and I'm sure there's a tons more other than those.
sure.
But I just find werewolves to be interesting. Were in general to be interesting because anything can be a were. Were buffalo, which makes me giggle. Hey James, but yeah, I like werewolves. I like what's the actual term for
Lycanthropes?
Yeah.
I mean, shape changers are cool, but I definitely think that I like. I don't disagree. The problem that I have with certain things is for players, like vampires. To me, there's just such a great thing, but they don't scare players that much anymore because they're like, it's just this. Same thing with werewolves. It's just this. Said,
they've been overpolluted. They've been overpolluted in our movies, TV shows. I said, behind the scenes Sunday. Sundays. One of my guilty pleasures is a show about teenage werewolves.
Oh yeah, you talked about. Well, you said Brotherhood of the Wolf, which I liked a lot.
I love the story of the Brotherhood of the Wolf. It could very well have been a werewolf, or it could have been how the movie projected out to be. It's just it's a fun story.
What does a pie cost?
All right, hey James, if you're going to ask questions like this, you need to hop in here because I'm feeling kind of dumb tonight. It's been a long day. But no, I mean, you got dragons, of course. I got a lot of dragons. You got the undead, which I think even the undead has been about $5. What?
Is you talking about like a pasty?
Pasty? He could pie cost in RPG.
Okay.
How much would a pasty be in RPG? Well, let's say 10 coppers. 10 coppers is a silver. 10. So I'm gonna say silver. No more. No, because of a go. I don't know.
Well, part of the problem that I have with whether it's an RPG or anything else is just the amount of treasure given. Players would never see gold coins for the most part. Well, that's like nobilities. The only time they have those, but a lot of it was what was it? A pound of silver, and
Yeah.
then you have a troy ounce, which was what? So that would make it a shilling, and then you got the pennies from there. It's what 20 pennies per shilling, and a shilling was a troy ounce. I mean, those are kinds of things that actually would say, okay, that seems about right. Well, how many pennies? It might be like 2 pennies.
It
Which
also
is
depends on what currency you're using, because sometimes they would like 5 bits or quite literally 5 bits of that they would just kind of cut off of a piece of a coin. I mean,
well, and a lot of it was, while they had it, in most cases, a lot of them just had barter. We'll barter this for that. How much is a chicken? Um, which is funny because we take chicken for granted nowadays, but chicken used to be the expensive food. And we're talking like Depression era.
yeah, I read somewhere that beef was actually cheaper than chicken.
Yep.
Pork has been king across the board throughout the world. Pork is always will be king. But yeah, I read that too, that chicken was actually more expensive than beef, which kind of surprised me because if done right, you can mass produce. Well, they do it right now. Mass produce chicken, and I can't imagine. I mean, I know there's like 3 different types of chickens. You got your you got your leg, you got your egg layers that you're fairly small, because most of their resources are going to the egg. Then you got your roasters, which are the ones that we normally take home. But I don't know. I figured they'd be a lot easier to mass produce for a little more time than it does for cattle, because a cow takes
Well, I think a
how
lot
long?
of people had small farms, and they'd have the cattle, and of course you'd try to have milk. So you get your milk there, and then you would have, which means that they're having another. It's either a heifer or a they're going to have a
Yeah,
calf.
and
And
cow
what do you
had
do with that
to,
calf? At a certain point, you have
right.
to slaughter the calf. Um, so
Mm.
that's why I think a lot of it, and what is one? You can do a lot with the whole head of beef. That's how many chickens do you have to eat to 500 pounds. Most chickens would going to come out to about 3 or 4 pounds. We're talking large chickens, um,
Yeah.
full grown. So if you're getting that, it's 100 chickens per cow. You know, so I understand why it came out that way.
Wow, my chat just blew up. I think there was a momentary pause between it and it because I got a bunch of James. Okay. Ah,
Well, some of the monsters I like. I mean, well, that's because everyone else was starving to death. I mean, he only killed 60 million Russians. I mean,
he was more of a threat to his own people than he was to the rest of the world.
well, he was number 2. Mao's number 1. Look at Mao's War in Sparrows.
Right.
People don't learn these things, and so you get that. And then Hitler's number 3, and then I think, and I could be off on this. I think it's what was Pol Pot's like number 4. So I've been to. I'm not sure if I count Hong Kong as China, but I've been to at least 3 out of those 4. If you count Hong Kong, then I've been out 4 out of those 4 countries.
My question is, how many Native Americans died during the time of Andrew Jackson?
Not as many that as died during the. There's a great book called 1491. It's not like some of the stuff I enjoy, like if you read Graham Hancock's America Before and stuff, where he throws out a lot of speculation. But
Right.
1491 was pretty solid. And he really went into the fact that 90 to 95% of the natives in the Americas died off. So the interesting thing, people forget about this. We all look at the, how many American Indians are here. But if you really look at it, the majority, by the time you get to the 1800s, most of the West was very empty, relatively speaking, because they used to have cities up to thousands and thousands of people, and there were multiple cities all along the Mississippi. And you can even hear it in the conquistadors. What always gets me is they ignore the conquistadors. Like, conquistadors are always lying. And whenever they have a chronicler, which was always a friar, the friar had no reason to lie. He actually wrote down exactly what he saw.
Right.
And they I was like, oh, they lie. Really? No, they didn't. Because that their job was to record. They were, they weren't great people, but let's see. Try and find my book. Oh, here we go. Right here, and I need to get through it. I have this thing at about 100 pages. I stop. Don't ask me why. Why did about 100 pages I stopped? It's called The Discovery of the Amazon. So it's the, according to the account of Friar Gaspar, and other documents. But, they're talking about the Orellana's expedition down the Amazon. And it's not, what I've read so far is not necessarily flattering. It's not anything bad either. It's just, it's like, what was it? I have to make sure that I get it right. Is it Cortez or Pizarro? Anyway, whichever one was there. I think it was Herman Cortez.
Cortez.
Well, I'm sorry, it's Pizarro. I think it's Pizarro actually was the one. He talks about he was trying to look for the you're trying to look for El Dorado. Well, I'll tell you who ended that. Well, go look at what they had. Their equipment was really weird. Even though that they had muskets, a lot of times they had crossbows with them too. A lot of stuff doesn't, things that don't get mixed up. But the Pizarro, in this case, he got mad and he tried having Orellana killed. But he was talking about trying to look for the city of gold. They're starving to death. He's grabbing Indians, and if they don't give him what he wants, he says the dogs tore them to pieces. And people forget that's literally what they did. The dogs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know the Cadiz. I know the Spaniards did some damage down there. But so did smallpox.
Well, but the real point was, and this is the thing that people forget, the conquistadors married a lot of the natives. Yeah. Well, you've got the javelin. The interesting thing is they were talking about the atlatls. Apparently, now I need to read it.
Have you seen those things? Have you seen one before?
Yes, I've actually seen them where they just used it to throw. And people forget just how far those things will go. Those things will go further than an arrow.
I've seen somebody not hunt with it. I mean, he was giving a demonstration at a college, ancient, weapons, and he had one, and he set up like a body with a ballistic gel and everything. He did it. I mean, that's not right because they go anyways, and that arrow, more or less is an arrow, cut through roughly the solar plexus and went all the way through. And he's like, well, 10-1, it probably hit some bones on the way through. But if you get tagged by one of these, by somebody who actually knew what they were doing, you're not going home.
Well, the atlatl can go easily a football field. And I think the record's like 3 or 4 football fields. I'll have to go look it up.
Yeah, I don't know how to use one. I think they're interesting as hell, though.
Well, what's interesting sometimes is we're talking. This is the part, as much as Shadow loves to do his survival, I would
Yeah.
love to take him through a paleo game, like because I got. Let's see, where did I put it? On my numerous
Book collection.
interesting, but I've been going for the stuff that's older instead of I kind of like the Renaissance, and where I like going way back. But I got this book called Paleo Mythic, which is
Right.
interesting. No, it's it the combat's a little bit different, but I don't mind the artwork. It's just cool looking. It's a bit different on the number of traits you get. Everyone kind of looks like Indians, or not everything, but definitely the artwork is just, I mean, stuff like this, which I really like. The guy's walking, and then there's a smilodon right on top of him.
Oh yeah, that's I can understand why you like that.
I mean, it's then they have giant scorpions. It's not like they don't put in fantastic things. Well, here's the reality that people forget: the Aztecs were so brutal to their neighbors that the neighbors joined the Spaniards, and that's why you get, the Spaniards don't really mention it that much, but it's like, oh, we got 300 Spaniards or 200 Spaniards, but let's ignore the 20,000 natives that joined them.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like I said, it's some of them I like. I like the older feel for things. I like the fact that weapons break, the armor's not that great. Survival is a huge thing. The shamanistic aspect, it's very different than the hermetic aspect of spelling. What's that?
There's a video game I was playing. It might have been a while ago,
Far
but
Cry?
it wasn't Minecraft. I do play a lot of Minecraft though.
No, it was. There was one called Far Cry.
No, I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but your weapons and your armor could only be hit so many times before it needed to be repaired. Was it Skyrim?
Probably. Well, I think the same thing also applies to The Witcher. There's a lot of stuff like that.
Where the weapon actually had its own health bar per se, and once it's gone past that, I thought that was a very annoying but interesting thing to throw in there.
Well, I like how they do it in Paleo Mythic. Is you roll, and it's a dice pull system basically, but it can both work and your weapon can break even though you succeeded. And actually, that was something very similar to Dark Sun that they had. But I like that old. I don't want to say it's. There's a certain point where you start getting into it, and it's the old Conan. Back before there was a great civilization and it's fallen. This one uses Mu, which I find interesting because much people talk about Atlantis. When I was a kid, I grew up with Mu. Yeah, there's a lot of different games out there.
It's just something to keep my hands busy.
Yeah, but I anyone that's watched Primal, I know that Elfbait did. But man, people forget just how big like over here at the Mayborn Museum, they have a huge mammoth kill, but they decided to put an imperial mammoth as if it was at real height. So you walk in and there's this. You look at the head and you look at the tusk and you're just like, yeah, that's the last thing I'm going to hunt if I have something easier to go for.
Was it here? I think no, I don't know. It's been so much shit's been going on in the news since I actually started paying attention. But I think they just found one. They found another mammoth. I know there's been conversations about cloning one and bringing them back into, and I'm like, so what's the purpose? To have one, to breed it out, to make material out of its wool or its fur, to eat it? Why are we bringing it? Why are we bringing it back? Why? There has to be.
I think there are a couple reasons. Not that I believe this, but some things that they do talk about, which is if you believe in the overkill hypothesis, is, hey, we made them extinct, with it, we should bring them back to rectify that. Okay, if that's one thing you believe in. The other part is to see in, kind of how they survive, which would be interesting. I I, I think a lot of it is just, it would be really cool to see a prehistoric animal that has not walked the earth in over 5,000 years come back.
I I I I I know it's a movie. Trust me, I know it's a movie, but there is a reason. I don't think we put mammoths to the stake. I think they eventually just died out because the earth was moving in a way that was no longer healthy for them to move. If they want to bring back anything, bring back the dodo bird. Bring back anything that's been around in the last, I don't know, 500 years. Not some creature that's been dead longer than Oxford College has been around.
I I still think it would be kind of cool to bring back some of these giants. Well, that was one of the things that when going up to Washington, and they were talking about the Missoula floods, which I don't think it was just. I don't think the Missoula floods were just in Missoula. I think that they had world-changing impacts um, for it, because I think I I'm pretty much in the comet hypothesis that it hit the ice sheets and it caused massive flooding, but it also caused massive change immediately. And I always find it interesting when they say, "Oh, the humans didn't disappear." Yeah, humans disappeared pretty much from the fossil record for about 500 years in North America. Um, Not saying it's perfect, but also you went from Clovis, and Clovis disappeared. Boom. It's like, wow. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I yeah, there's Jurassic Park, but I mean, I
I
hate
mean,
saying this. I would love to see some of these animals. The question is, where could they survive? Um, but these are animals that survived for hundreds of thousands of years that just suddenly disappeared, just like they talk about the Glyptodon. Humans took out the Glyptodons. You know what? They find one or two kill sites in the entire thing, and that's it. I think. No,
once
I've
again,
heard
don't
recently
you
that
read?
they're what? Go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it. No,
So
continue your thought.
I mean, I work with archaeologists. Well, I say where I work with them is they work in a different department, but since they play role playing games, I hang out with them. Uh, and to be fair, I'm probably the connection between engineering and archaeology. So they're like, "Oh my God, you actually talk to us more than just saying, hey guys, is it okay after they design everything?" Um, but man, the Glyptodons to me are just so cool. The giant armadillos with spiked tails.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, I know what you're. I just. It's not that I don't think it would be cool to see these animals be brought back. I'm not. The child in me would love to see a Jurassic Park theme area. It's just, I think also at the same time, it would be wildly inappropriate to do so. And I'm not trying to bash anybody's dreams. I'm just, the world that they knew is no longer a thing. I mean, we would have to buy out large sections of what? Africa, Mexico, Brazil,
Gee, no, it's just Canada. That's all we have to do. It's not like Canada's even
for
popular.
mammoths. I'm talking
Yeah.
about dinosaurs.
Oh, for dinosaurs, here's the problem that I have with it, whether people like it or not. Do I want a 40-foot long animal with 6-foot jaws that is not a whale decide that it gets hungry and decide to wander the earth? The answer is no. It's I, uh, I
Mammoths, oh yeah, there's large parts of Canada that are completely uninhabitable. So yeah, sticking creature mammoth or a mammoth up there that it would survive, sure, but there's still enough animals in recent decades that have gone extinct because of us that we can clone and bring back. I'm not going to say wholesale, but I think they have a more of a right to a second chance than the T Rex.
Well, I wasn't thinking the T-Rex. I'm just thinking about a lot of these animals from
Oh
back.
yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
mean,
I'm not trying to bash anybody's dreams here. I'm just being that
well,
ass right now. I'm sorry.
I mean, what gets me about it is you look at the size of the dinosaurs, and you have to figure out how much they ate and how many of them were around. And you have to go, okay, this is a super lush environment for food. Um, I will say this much is, and I don't know why, even though it's a different era, I love the Dimetrodons and the ones with the big sail in the back.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dimetrodons are not dinosaurs; they're actually closer to mammals. Um,
Are they really?
yeah, yeah.
Well, technically, dinosaurs are birds. Large, angry
Well,
claws. And
apparently, what
big
happened
birds.
is the dinosaurs are more from the reptile side, and the Dimetrid the whatever the other one is, but I which is fine because I've been watching it all over. But man, they're just so cool. But I would tell you one thing I'd love to bring back because I don't think it'd be that dangerous, or I hope it wouldn't. Would be the Megatherium, the giant sloth.
Yeah, I can see that. I just, you know, there's a certain point those Jurassic Park movies have right. We don't want the cute, friendly, somewhat easy animals to bring back. We want the Veloc. No, well, actually, those weren't Velociraptors. Those were Utah Raptors. But that's besides the point. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. I'm not a big dinosaur nerd, but I know my way around most of it. But those were the dinosaurs we were going to want to bring back. There was the Brontosaurus, the T Rex, the Utah Raptors, the Stegosaurus, the Brontosaurus, the Triceratops, the ones that were in our childhood that we loved, not the mega sloth, not the giant ape, not the mammoth. Well, the mammoth would be kind of cool.
Well, I think people would still be up for a Glyptodon or a Megatherium. Um, I think that they would be up for some of those. I think, but those lived in a relatively normal world. I mean, people forget dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were an era when grass did not even exist.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I didn't think
Yeah,
about, but yeah, you're
they,
right.
they came out. That came out after the Cretaceous. I think it was the Eocene is when all of a sudden we started getting grasses.
Could
You
they
know,
even breathe the air that we breathe now?
I think it was a bit higher in oxygen, is what they said. There's been some different questions about it, but to be fair, it's these are animals that lived like 30 million years, and it's. I always find it funny from 100 to 65 million years. I went, that's half as long as from the end of the dinosaurs till now. Um, but a lot of these, animals that we're talking about, human beings lived right next to. Um, and they may have killed him rarely, but yeah. Hey, Justin. Um, but
It'd
but
be
no,
fun. I mean, there's a type of I think it's a New Zealand dog or it's an Australian,
the
but so we're
thylacine, which is the well, there's the wolf, and then they have there's another one that's the marsupial lion. So they
yeah,
have
the marsupial lion would be interesting. See, both of them would be really interesting. And I
well, the
mean,
thylacine was 1920 was the last one they have. They have video footage of it walking around.
I saw a video, and God forgave me for the source on this one because anything on the History Channel is bullshit anymore. But there was a group of people that actually think that there might be there's been sightings.
That they're well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know and how much are there, but the thylacine was one that we can definitely agree was. I think the last one was the 1920s, so they actually have video footage of it
Yeah, it was in
walking.
the crap. It
Yeah,
was in the
zoo.
zoo.
And
I
I
could
that
confirm
one's
it.
kind of that one's a bit different, but man, some of the other animals. My whole thing is I generally don't want to bring back giant predators. it's
Flying, swimming, things, that are bigger than houses. No, I think it's a horrible idea.
I mean, well, anything that can look over into my window from the second story that would like to eat me is probably not the best. Because
I
do
read,
you really think that your house is going to stop a Tyrannosaurus Rex?
I don't think my house would stop a rhino. So, and therefore, what any large animals, cows, a bull, if a bull or a buffalo or whatever gets going, these walls are not that thick. These are not,
I mean,
I know
I
what
mean,
kind of shit house structure I live in. Um, but cloning anything, I think 1920. Sure, I'll go back. I'll dodo bird. The pan or certain pan. I think there's a panda. Oh, hold on. James is asking what I'm painting. I am painting a catapult. I'm painting it all brown. Then I'm going to go after. Once I get it brown, then I'm going to go back over it with, like right at the circle. I'm going to make that metal. I'm going to paint like a metal. I am working on this one, and I'm working on a cannon right now. Although I'm thinking about painting the cannon brass. I think
you know,
somebody told me.
the other thing I like to see is the giant sea manatee that they used to have, which was like 20 something feet long, which we hunted.
Yeah, there you go. That's a fair statement.
As long as it's not reinforced, yes.
Only thing this is reinforced with is meth dreams and wishful thinking.
Well, that's true.
The ocean, though. I mean, the ocean's a whole different. I mean, not to be punny, but the ocean is a whole different creature if you think about it. We're still finding shit. We're still finding shit down there that we didn't know exist.
Well, we found, which I thought was weird, we found a type of woodpecker that they thought had been dead for 100 years in Arkansas.
Well, there's also the Arkansas educational program, so it's okay. We understand.
Well, I have to laugh because no, it depends on what we're talking about with reinforced. I can tell you this much: you design it, 100 people won't do crap to it. But because I look at retaining walls, so
that is not something in my wheelhouse of things I know about. Can I build a barn? In theory.
Well, here's what I have to laugh at: is you go through engineering school and they make you do differential equations and they make you do all of this hard stuff. And then you get in the real world, and most of it is basic algebra. So it's not any more advanced than the Egyptians is what you're really doing in most.
When you guys talk about
Well, the giant squid, man, that's a great story.
I love the fact. I love the fact that there is such a thing as a giant squid. Because growing up, you hear stories, sea stories. I live by the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's stories about, mermaids, the kraken, all these horrible, the sea pig, which I've never quite figured out what the hell that was supposed to be. But yeah, then, 20 years later, they find a dead giant squid. And it's like, oh my God, there might be actually something to the stories about not that it's reaching up and cracking full wooden ships down. But some sailors out there and they see a monstrously sized squid out there. It's fun to think about.
Well, here's a perfect example because they require cold weather. But if you look at the Vikings ships were only like 3 feet deep. They were not that deep. They had a very narrow. So imagine a squid comes up to the surface and it can reach right around. Now, I'm not saying that anyone was lost there for the Vikings, but I could just see these Vikings going, "Oh my God!" Cutting it, turning.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and especially when you look at the suckers, they're this big. I mean, you can see how it could drag someone off, and if they're wearing any kind of heavy clothing, they go in the water. They're not coming back up.
And that beak that they have.
Oh yeah, geez.
I mean,
Speaking of which, I'm going to have to mention this. Have you ever seen Fire and Ice, the movie?
no, but been meaning to. It's on my I need to watch list.
Maybe I should put that down at some point for our fantasy.
Is it Jack friendly?
I don't know. Well, I think Jack would kind of enjoy it. Well, since we're talking about for games and stuff,
Yeah.
but there's one point where he's fighting, like a Cthulhu like monster with tentacles, and those are just they're just great monsters overall. Anyone that's ever heard about the Humboldt squid, which is weighs about as much as I do. Um,
Don't know
yeah,
that one.
the Humboldt squid. Usually it's right over near Mexico, over some of those areas. But they'll attack divers because they come up at night and they'll come in and they'll grab on, and they have the beaks and they'll bite, and they kind of call them like piranhas in that aspect. But they decided to tag one. There's a great show. I think, what was it called? Monster Quest.
Yeah. I know that one. It's on Discovery Channel.
Well, it used to be on the History Channel or whatever, and it was actually pretty good because I liked it because they really did like real science about things and some things they found out were true, like the snakes in Florida before everyone admitted there were snakes in Florida.
I don't do snakes very well.
Really? I as a kid, I used to grow up with snakes, and I love snakes.
I think there's two. There's two reasons in past history I think made me terrified of snakes. One, when I was a kid, watching Jake the Snake have that not cobra, was it a python? Yeah, it was a
probably
python.
A python or a boa constrictor.
Fighting on to Randy Savage didn't do me any favors. When I came to the States and I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, I had a cousin throw a rat. I think you call them rat snakes.
Yeah, it's probably a rat snake.
To throw a rat snake in my face. Ever since then, I just can't do snakes anymore. I know it's an irrational fear.
Well, that's fine. I can see you just by the way that you started cringing. It's like, what's going to happen now if I ever run you in the game? You're meeting giant snakes.
That's fine. I have a recipe for roasted rattlesnake.
That's one thing I haven't had because I was up in Canada actually, and they had exotic animals to eat. I think they even had bear and a few other things, but the rattlesnake was just too expensive. It was like $80 for a plate, and I went, yeah, no. Even though the government's paying for my training, that's a bit much for me. They give you a per diem.
Of a snake wrangler? Yeah, wrangler is
probably the right word.
That raises rattlesnakes to for I don't know him personally, but he's in the sport.
Yeah.
They use them in movies.
Okay.
And he will sell once they get to a certain size, he will sell them for
boots and stuff.
Yeah. Because one of my friends had him come over to our campsite, and my friend knows I put a gun to I'd rather have a gun to my head than be anywhere near a snake. I've never been able to figure this one out. But yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I have almost stepped on several copperheads when I was seeing my son's mother. And I mean, they would just stand there and but they'll bite you if you step on them, to be fair.
I'd bite you if you stepped on me too, if not worse.
I mean, that's not, I think, and this is what I've heard also is, she got bitten by a copperhead, and then they had to give her anti-venom, and so there was that.
What was that story I heard when I was? I'm in Hannibal, Missouri, going fishing with my grandpa, and there was an overabundance of water moccasins that year.
Yeah.
And the park ranger, as soon as somebody says snake, I always have the same reaction. It's involuntary. Trust me. I wish I could be, big and beefy. And no snake. I'm like, oh god.
Well, I've got a better story than that, there, Connell. But go ahead. Well, you finish your story, then I'll tell you about mine.
The park ranger says that they're a couple weeks before we got there, this guy's boat broke down. He's guessing this guy's boat broke down, and he was maybe a half a mile from his boat to shore, and he starts swimming. Well, he must have got tired because he saw this was all speculation
Sure.
because he saw this leg floating down the river. Anybody who knows anything about water moccasins know that they'll group up into could look like a log. So they're thinking he grabbed a hold of it, thinking it was a log. He was going to push it, help him get to shore.
Yeah.
It turned out to be water moccasins, and when they found the body, there was like over 100 different snake bites on it. Don't know if the story is true, but it was enough for me. It's like, I'm just staying in my tent. Fuck you all.
Well, I mean, I've seen water moccasins before, and like most things, you have to really because usually if they curl up, they aren't going to do anything because they curl up as a defensive maneuver, which means they're not going to move. But what I have to love about them was now I have heard that whenever they're mating, you have the one female, and then they'll be surrounded by all the males, so you get this big ball. But I don't know about when I start looking up on how many people die of water moccasin bites, it's like one every couple of years. I think it's like 4 or 5 people die of rattlesnake bites.
Oh, it's rare.
Yeah.
It does happen, but it's not. I'm more likely to go get hit by a car in my parking lot than I am to be bit by a snake.
Yeah, so there's that one. I think it was. But here's my little story. When you talk about how you just quiver about it. I remember being in boot camp, and we used to get guys, they come down to Florida, and they were talking about how big, bad, and tough they are, and they're like, you people don't have roaches, we said, we're from New York, we got like real roaches and everything, like, and I would just laugh, and like, and then they said, and all of a sudden your cockroaches flew, and I screamed like a girl. It's like, I would just die laughing because it's the that, and people aren't used to how big cicadas are.
Oh God, I had a buddy. I think I told you this. My buddy who served was over at the sandbox, as he puts it. Was just got off of some kind of duty. I don't know what was. His shift was over, and he saw
camel spider.
And there was a broken wooden, broken broom, and he shaved the bit. He just went to hell with it, and he speared the thing and flipped over and stuck it outside of his tent. His CO thought it was funny. The person above his CO thought it was disrespectful. Don't do it. ... But he sent me a picture of it. And I wish I still had it. Oh my God. But those fuckers look like little, they didn't have the tail, but they look like face huggers from the Alien movies. I'm like,
Well, so when I was in Afghanistan, one of the guys was talking about it, and they're fast too. They go like 12 miles an hour. They're fast little buggers. So about as fast as most people can run. That's about how fast they run. Anyway,
so you can outrun these fuckers. Gotcha.
Well, if you're a little bit faster, you can. But yeah, if you can run a 5-minute mile, you can outrun them. Anyway,
I'm fucked.
Anyway, he ran over, he chased it down, and he grabbed it, and he held it up. And they've got, these, you look at them like, okay, they're not as, it was probably about this big. But yeah, it was definitely creepy looking, and they're kind of white, and they're, but when I was in, but we were there, and of course, for Iraq, I saw several fat-tailed scorpions. I say several. I saw 2 of them, and one of them was walking down the street, and for a scorpion, they're pretty big. They're probably about 3 to 4 inches, and they're pretty muscular. They're not like the ones in the States here, which look kind of delicate. He looks right there, and where I was, had a bunch of Italian soldiers. So they were sitting right there and looking at it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm looking at it. As soon as they're all done taking their pictures, one of the soldiers immediately steps on it with his boot. And people are like, oh, how could you do that? I'm like, you understand that these are actually like poisonous enough that if you get stung, you have to go to the hospital, right? Because people have died from those stings, and not from anaphylactic shock, just because of the poison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're one of the very they would definitely put up on the screen. Then I had I had a coworker. She was from the Dominican Republic. Um, well, that's where she lived originally, and then she moved up to the States, and so she's a U.S. citizen. But that's where she originally came from, and we're out there, and she says, "There aren't any snakes out here." I said, "Yeah, there's snakes." So she's almost jumping on my back. I said, "Well, look, it's 110 degrees." I said, "The only thing out here right now are stupid human beings because everything else has the common sense to get away from this hot sun," which is true. But that's one thing I'm going to tell you this much: anyone that ever goes around riprap, if you drop something in the rocks, just assume it's gone forever because there are plenty of snakes in there, water moccasins, and all sorts of stuff in there. So um, that's where they like to hide because it's nice and cool during the summer.
Oh God, there's a video. God, where was it? Was it down in Florida? It had to be down in Florida. You know what gigging is, right?
Um, oh yeah.
Catfish gigging?
Noodling.
Maybe maybe we're talking
So
about.
noodling is where you reach in with your
Yeah,
hand and the
you
catfish
reach
bites
and you
you.
grab the catfish and you pull it out.
Yep.
Well, this guy was doing it down in Florida. Reached in, grabbed a hold of something, and pulled it out. It wasn't a catfish. When he pulled it out, he had a snake, python wrapping around his arm. I'm
Oh
like, nope,
wow.
nope, watching something else.
Well, here's the problem that I have with it. Have you ever seen how big the alligator snapping turtles get?
Oh, those things get huge.
Yeah, they get to like 100 pounds. And I said, why am I reaching under where I can't see something that's going to bite my fingers off?
Nope, nope, nope. I mean, I've seen some of those gloves that they have out now where they're like fireproof, cut,
Yeah.
slashing, budgeting proof. And I want one of those times 10 in thickness before I deal with a crocodile turtle, snapping turtle, because they get a hold of anything, digit wise, digits or other things, and it's just
Well,
gone. There's
well, so
no
your
coming
fingers are
back.
bigger. You might just have yours, but mine was just coming right off. That's
Oh, even if it doesn't want to come off, I'm gonna want it to come off. There's
oh,
nothing. Oh, where was I? It's past. It's 11:08. So if we need to
yeah,
call it here, we can.
sure. But
I,
no, there's that. Well, the one thing that, and people don't realize just how big alligators get, um,
I,
is
I did. Yeah. Hmm.
well, I remember, and I've always tried taking pictures, but the pictures never do it justice. I remember being near Jasper, Texas, and there was probably a 12-foot gator just laying out on the dam, and they're fine. I don't really worry about alligators too much as long as it's kind of clear water. It's but the problem I think with a lot of it is that people sit around there and it just watches you for a bit. For the most part, alligators haven't been a big deal. But man, they are.
Only when people are dumb.
What's that?
Only when people are dumb. They
Well, I
become.
mean, every so often, something does occur. They do
I
eat.
mean,
They eat
your
people's
dogs
pets.
and cats
Yeah.
will go missing.
I'll tell you this
Um,
much. Here's one thing people don't realize is just how common coyotes are, because coyotes are real smart. And you think that, because I remember driving in Florida, and oh wow. Well, you know what, Crafting Gamer, whether it's true or not, it's a great story. Uh, is when I was 5, I stepped on a rattlesnake, but it had just eaten, and so it had nothing coming out.
it was all spent.
Well, it had a bunch of baby birds, which I was trying to. Yeah, it had gotten a bunch of birds, and then I come out, and my father has a shovel about ready to cut through its neck, and he calls the MPs, and he says, "Is this a poisonous snake or not?" And the MPs are like, "Sir, that's a rattlesnake." He says, "Do you want to kill it?" They're like, "No, sir, you can do it." And my
Oh,
father put the shovel about halfway through its neck before it even got conscious. And then after he decapitated, he took it off and buried it in the ground.
that is a wheelchair.
Oh, okay. Um, that was
The
but yeah.
wheelchair people will be chased by dinosaurs.
Yeah. Have you ever watched, a little side note, did you ever watch the movie or documentary called Murder Ball?
Maybe.
It's about a bunch of quadriplegics that are playing like wheelchair basketball.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
I mean, those guys are nuts. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. You know, it's like, look, if you're, well, how did someone say is that it was the what the dungeon is not wheelchair accessible? I'm like, it's accessible, it's just not exitable.
Yeah, that's Max.
No,
I
I think I was me saying that is like, well, I'm like, I can just roll you down the stairs.
dut, 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 dut. Uh, yeah.
Well, I mean, but I will say this, but going back to my alligators, yeah, I've seen some of them. I think they had some of the others. You know, you get like I forgot they had a crocodile or something that was like 15 feet long. Those are monsters. I mean, holy hell! You don't. It's one thing watching on TV and seeing how big a guy is. It's another when you're standing next to a glass cage, looking at how close they are. You're like, yeah. Uh,
My aunt lives down in Florida, and we went to.
which part, if you don't mind?
She lives up in the Ferdinand Amelia Island area
Okay.
up north,
Okay.
like spitting distance of Georgia. Yeah, but my ex mother in law lives down in Hollywood,
Yep.
so I've been to hell. We even drove to off one of the keys,
Yeah.
something like that. Anyways, we stopped. Florida has a bunch of gator farms.
Yes. Yes. The alligator farm. Yeah. We stopped there when I was a little kid. But
And some of those boys, they would have shows and everything, and I'm thinking to myself, this even because we took my daughter and the boys down to one of them, and we looked at, and Laszlo, my oldest, is like, how much would it cost for you to? I'm like, there's not enough money in the world for me to stick my head into a gator's mouth, or whatever. And
you know what I find interesting is that they can train the alligator to heal. You know, like it will come and stop,
oh,
and
they're
they
not
can.
dumb animals.
Alligators are a lot smarter. I mean, when you can start giving verbal commands to them.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Well, actually, it's the stairs. The stair, you can go down the stairs. It's coming back up. That's the problem. You know, it's yeah, yeah. But no, those are a lot of uh, when we talk about it was just like a horse. You know, my ex had I think she still has it. She has this horse that was only like 600 or 700 pounds, wheel sweet and everything else, and so she decides to get her bred. And of course, the horse was really nervous. Holy hell! I don't care what anyone says. Is when that horse reared up on her hind legs and stood up, straight. I went, "What the hell am I doing here?" and you start looking at these. Well, yeah, but
That right there, that movie is my favorite Betty White movie.
oh,
Because I remember her from what Golden Girls, and
yes.
her doing Real Sweet Grandma, except for Boston Legal, but that's a whole different. That show was special.
Well, Betty White had a really good sense of humor for stuff, and but
But when
yeah,
she
I mean,
said, "I hope that gator eats you, cocksucker," I'm like, "Grandma."
I boy, well, like I said, I've been getting into the ancient animals. You start looking at these things, and like the Titanoboa is like 40 feet long, 45 feet long. You're just, well, and how big is its mouth? That the giant alligators that are 30, 40 feet long. You're just like, wow. I mean, even watching the old Alligator Hunter or whenever they do that with the when they
Steve
have
Irwin?
well, it was Steve Irwin, but when they get those ancient they get those saltwater crocodiles.
Yeah.
and just even its mouth opening is taller than the person. You're just like,
I will
that's
watch every so often. I'll watch one of those Naked and Afraid shows they have on Discovery Channel. I think they're interesting. Not that I, although I was about to say no, not that I would ever fucking do it. And I'm back in my head like, what would be an interesting way to lose fucking weight? uh how good is your survival now? I'm like, it's all right.
I'm just thinking. Well, if here's the difference between you and I, Cuddle, is you could probably survive 2 weeks without food, and meantime, like you know, you're
Then
like,
yeah, I come back looking like, huh, I look halfway decent again. Yeah,
oh. Well,
but
that just
no, there,
comes. Go ahead. Sorry.
there's this guy. They were in was it South America, and they were going after Cayman,
Yeah.
Cayman, and the guy was like chipping or whatever noise he used, and they were chipping right back at him. And I'm like, damn. So
I so when I was doing some of the dam inspections, and I careful a little bit, but we always deal with beavers. But when the guy was going, yeah, I got an alligator out here. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, here's my picture. He was doing a great job on the dam anyway. But it's pretty funny because on the things that you're willing to live with. But I still love the whole thing, which was all these people talking about we're going to invade the South. I said, well, you say that until you see alligators and you have to go deal with swamp people. No, that's the problem that I have with so much of it is after a while, I I really enjoyed the History Channel when it had like the Real West. Um, I I have watched The Crafting Gamer. I've also lived near it. Um, it was, but yeah, there was the oh, what was the other thing that they had? Um, but they used to have that. They had when they deal with vampires and werewolves and the various theories of them. I enjoy that stuff. But when it started becoming American Pickers, what was the other one? Pawn
one
Stars,
star. When it was
Swamp People.
was it at most 3 to 4 shows showing it nonstop. I'm like, okay, I'm done with you guys. I mean, even now, I have a few shows on the History Channel, like Oak Island. I'll watch Oak Island because I think it's interesting. Even if there's nothing, even if they never find anything, historically, that was a hot bot for a lot of different shit. So it grabs my interest.
Part of me just goes the problem I had with it is I want to watch history. I want to actually sit there and watch things that I learned from, and I don't care about Americana. I don't care about pawns. Them selling the pawn stuff. It's like okay, it's kind of, but no. I would, like I said, is show me more BBC. Walking with dinosaurs or the prehistoric animals or that's the guy. Well, Apple TV has their dinosaur stuff, and dinosaurs are changing all over. Do they have feathers? Do they not have feathers? So I've seen all different versions of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Um, but I think it's kind of cool. I like the idea of it. And now I was watching one guy that said they're actually trying to find out what the colors are on the dinosaurs by looking at the pigments. And they can kind of figure out with the skin what it would be. And I said, that, they're really colorful animals. I said, but they just look cool. I mean, dinosaurs are one of my favorite things. And why in the world, how do I want to put this? The old D&D, which was the X1, wherever I have that book. Oh, this to me is one of the greatest modules ever created.
No, I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, well, it's got a 5e version of it, which fleshes stuff out.
Yes.
Well, what I like about it so much is that what I think part of it is that they start putting in different dinosaurs, like they have like the enraged, like the Allosaurus, the Ankylosaurus, the Dimetrodon. I mean, those are the kinds of things I would like to see more of in games. Here, the favorite monster of all, the deranged Ankylosaurus.
Why does it have to be deranged?
Well, apparently it ate the wrong drug.
Oh wow.
You know
It
how
must
you're
be from
talking about
Missouri.
Cocaine Bear?
Yeah.
Although it says, although normally quite docile, this beast grazed on a patch of loco weed and is now under the plant's influence. The giant beast will attack until slain or until the drug wears off in about 2 hours.
Oh shit.
Um, I those are the things I kind of like. At they have that one. They have the Rock is another one I love. Um, you know they had this thing called arenas, which are like intelligent talking spiders. Um, these are not that it's the greatest picture, but let's see. But just that's my classic.
Let me zoom in. Okay, let me make your screen bigger because let's see that thing. Oh wow.
I mean
That's
that's that's the kind of thing that if I'm playing D&D, I want to see. Well, and then the other side is the plesiosaur, which is eating someone right there. That's that, uh, no. Loco weed would be cocaine or marijuana.
what was I gonna say. Uh you know, for creatures, I think I don't know. I don't think the rust monster gets as much love as it should.
The rust monster is just one of those things that you do there to be a dick. You put a rust monster in there with a carrion crawler, and man, all of a sudden they're like, oh my god. But you know what? I love some of those old stuff and just the feeling for it. It's like, all right, but yeah, but this was the first. I mean, you look at it was the first dungeon crawl. That's what the players see, and then they fill it in as they walk around.
Right.
It's this is where I feel bad about Goodman Games. They have all of these great maps in the back, and they're not allowed to print any of them because they're not allowed to do a PDF. And I just went, why can't Wizards of the Coast just take a percentage? Anyway, I love some of the things in here, but that's just the way that I am. But I also like the fact that they do have it's a 1E and then they got the 5E version right over here. So they have the
Nice.
Dimetrodon 5E. These are actually really nice thick books. They do a good job if you want to learn the history of it. And then the second half, which is the 5E version, is a more fleshed out version of it. It really gives you a good history that I think a lot of players are missing from D&D nowadays. And I got to do my one last thing because I always talk about it, but this is where I have to give Monty Cook the greatest. I mean, who doesn't want dinosaurs with lasers? It's this.
That was the one thing that the Crow movie was missing. It had no dinosaurs.
Oh, I know. That's well, for a setting, Predation is probably my favorite that they have out there.
Right.
I mean, right over here. This is what I find kind of cool. I don't know how well you can see that, but just it's an arena where they're all betting, watching dinosaurs, bash each other with their heads.
Oh, the bronzosauruses fight like brass.
Yeah, it's like they do a great job in this one. It's not that I have anything against Palladium. The problem that I have with it is as I get older, I want less and less crunch, and 5e has a bit too much crunch, and Palladium.
I don't know. Compared
it
to
has too much rolling.
That's fine. When you say crunch in 5e, I'm like, compared to other systems, not so much. But I get what you're saying.
Well, like we were talking with Chimerian, he's so excited about Exalted Essence, and I was reading the rules. I actually showed him the PDF, but I said, here's where you can go look at the PDF, and so he's super excited about it. But what you guys did versus what I think should have been done are two very different things. But the Exalted Essence would have been a lot faster for you guys to make your characters.
Yeah, it's been said a few times.
I know.
Bruce is making our characters. When I run mine, Escape from Alcatraz. I think I'll just make characters for them to run again. I
I
think it
well,
just
my suggestion is, however many players you have, you make twice as many characters. Um, well, no, I don't mean this in a bad way. What I mean is that, hey, look, I've got like, you know, pick one out of these.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the problem whenever you're just doing one shots, is because if you do a one shot, you can, if you make the characters form, one is players are like, oh, okay, we're just here to play. But the other part is that it allows them to decide on how they're going to, if they can just pick what's there, but you as a DM can give them the right magic items, you can give them the right spells, and they get to pick what they're going to have instead of them just guessing and then you have to work around it. But anyway, Connell, I think it's getting late. I need to get to bed. So,
All right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Bo was kind of surprised that we shut up. We closed shop as early as we did last time. Omen out here is a really cool guy. You can see him at different people's channels. I know you do EO Geek. I know you hang out with the Elite Gamer, aka DM James. You hang out with Shadow and Sun. I'm sure there's like 15 other people I'm missing, but you can find them every so often yelling at Max through clickety click click.
you're playing it wrong. No.
Right. So if you get a chance and you see Owen out here on the channel, say hi. I'm Connell, the Cigar DM. You will see me Thursday on Table Breakers. You will see me then on Sunday. This guy over here, Shadow and Son, Mark. God, I keep forgetting his last name. Gardner?
Gornitz? I can't remember. Well,
yeah, I'll have to get better on his name. He's got his own channel that y'all need to check out. I'll get better on his name. We will be talking about. Bo now just showed up.
I will always feel so sorry for Mark, is because it's because
Mark
of
German. There we go. That's his last name. I'll just have to. But we will be talking about the 1990. God, 2, 3.
British. It's the British version of not the American version of Robin Hood from that time era.
But the better version of Robin Hood from that time era.
Well. You said Kevin Costner. That's the American version. This one's the British. I haven't watched it yet, but
oh yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, Shadow. That's not Errol Flynn, but I'm not a big fan of Nazis. Well, actually, that's never been proven. Just highly, highly, highly suggested.
Hey! What you're not a big fan of King George? The king before Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, you mean her uncle that gave up the throne? So her it was Albert. Then it would have went to his son, but because he wanted to marry a divorcee American Simpson, are you talking about that one?
Yeah, that's the story that they gave. He was pro-Nazi.
Oh, I was going there. I was going there. Then you got, So
I mean, there was the story that they gave to the public. Then there was the story that you find out like 50 years later.
The tapes. Oh my God, that's a whole different conversation for a different night. People that were Nazis that you did not know until after the fact. That'll be the title of it. I'll do some homework on that one. But yeah. I saw the Errol Flynn Robin Hood as I was a kid, and I was not a fan.
The movie that we haven't seen that would be really good is, I'm just sorry, did you guys ever do The Princess Bride?
Oh yeah, that was in the very beginning.
Okay, just making sure.
I'll have to talk to Shadow, but that might be a anniversary, like a 1-year anniversary, going back to watch Princess Bride. Because
no, you guys don't have to do that. I mean, I've watched Princess Bride enough times anyway. But
it's fun to talk about. We're waiting for
if you could do it, Connell, go do Fire and Ice, because that's a classic. Frank Frazetta style adventure. I'm not saying it's the greatest movie, but when I was a kid, because it showed blood, I was like, "This is awesome!"
It's not about Errol Flynn. It was about Basil Rathbone as Sheriff. Oh, okay. I have to look into it. But yeah, we're doing the BBC, not the BBC. We're doing the British Robin Hood that came out the same era as the Kevin Costner. The British one has the very beautiful, not so slightly young Uma Thurman in it, I believe.
No, she would have been really young then.
Yeah. So, Bo is now being chatting.
All right. Well, you take care, Bo.
All right. We're going to sign off, Bo. Eventually, we're going to have you on here. Our last night straight. Now I'm dragging. All right. Bo, well, yeah, like I said, Bo, we'll have to have you on one of these nights. We're not working so late. Everybody, have a good night. Don't do anything stupid. And remember, if you do, just think about, would Connell have done this? And the answer is most likely yes, unfortunately. I'll talk to you later.
Should Connell have done this? That's the other thing. What would Connell do?
Connell will say, go grab a beer or hold my beer.
Oh.